So tonight we're just going to recreate a logo using some type, manipulating type and some other objects. So as you can see here, I have previously created a logo for a fake tech company called Omnia. So we're just going to start by some type. So we're going to go ahead and select the type tool from the list over here. And whoops. And we're going to just drag out a box. It's always going to automatically fill with some type. It's always going to use the last type treatment or font you used. In this case, we're just going to type in Omnia. And if you wanted, of course, once you type that in, you can select it. And then up here, you can pick fonts, change your size, and different things, just like you would in InDesign. So that should be pretty familiar. But of course, we want to start to manipulate the type and not just keep it like this. So what we need to do is create an outline of it. So what we need to do is make sure you have your selection tool. And we're going up to type menu here, and we're going to go create outline. So what that does now is if we go to your direct select tool, you can see it has actually created points for all of these. So now we can actually go in and manipulate. You could actually grab points and you could start moving them around, or you can actually move points around in that. So what we're going to do is just select them all. By default, they're all grouped together. So we're going to just kind of make that bigger. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a right click here, and we're just going to go ungroup. And then, so we have the type here, and then I'm going to go up to the rectangular tool or ellipse tool here, and we're just going to draw out an ellipse so we can get our circle here. We'll do like this. Default, usually it shows up as a fill, so we're going to go over swatches. If you don't have the swatches open already, you can go under your Windows palette. So under your Windows palette, you'll be able to find most items that you may or may not have open. I'm currently under the default layout, so if you're using that one here under your different palette settings, you should have a very similar setup to what I have here. So we're going to take the fill, we're going to go to none, click on the stroke, and we're just going to go pick like a 40% gray. Of course, that's not very thick, so we'll go down to stroke again. If it's not there, you can go up to your window palette here and open that. So we're just going to do something like, say, 15 point, make it a little bigger. Go back to our selection tool. And then what we want to do is kind of, we're going to move it up here. And then if you kind of hover in the corner, you see you get kind of the turn tool. So if you click and drag, you can kind of move it around like that. And then one thing you want to do is, like, of course, you can't grab in the middle because there is no fill. So you actually have to make sure you click on the actual line, or you'll be driving yourself nuts trying to move that. So you can also use the arrow tools to move things around like that, and all that. So what we want to do is we can manipulate it a little more. So what we're going to do is go ahead and we want to send this behind the type. So if we right click again, we can do arrangement, and we can send that to the back. So now that's behind our type. So what we want to do is now make it look like this line comes up in front of the M and through the A. So this gives us a little more dimension. So we're going to do it a couple of different ways here. So first, I'm going to zoom in here a bit so we can see that. So on the M, first we're going to take our direct select tool here, and I'm going to grab these points and make sure you only select the point, or you'll move the whole thing. And then we're just going to drag that down to meet up with the edge of the circle. If you hold down your shift key, you'll stay in a straight line. Of course, now that we have that, we want this part of the M to recede behind the line. So what we're going to do is just do a simple, we're going to select it, we're going to take the scissors, and we're just going to snip the two corners here. And so what we're going to do with the selection tool is select the whole letter and make sure you have the box going around, and we're going to do release compound path. So that what that's going to do is then make these separated. So what we can do is go ahead and make sure we've selected on that. We're going to right click, and we're going to go ahead and do arrange, and we're going to send it to the back. So now this part of the M is behind that. And then we're going to go over to the N. We're going to do the same thing here. We're going to make this we want this to look like it comes down, so we're just going to hold down the shift key as we grab that point, go over here, let go, hold down the shift key, and we're just going to get that right there. We're going to zoom in so we can make sure that we got that. I'm just going to add in a little point so I can make that curved a little, just so it lines up a little better. So now we have the OMN on this eye. We're going to do something very similar. We're going to take the scissors tool, and I want to separate it to make it look more like a traditional eye. So we're going to cut that off and make sure we select the whole thing with the bounding box, and we're going to do release compound. And then what we can do is then take this and I want to move it up. So now it looks more like a traditional eye with a space around it. So also I want the O to be behind the line, so we can just go ahead and, since we ungroup this all, we can send that to the back also. And then over here during the A, we want it to go through here. So the thing is though, we can't just cut this apart because this is a compound path. So this has been cut out of the letter shape. So if we did that, it would ruin that. So the next best thing that we're going to do is we're going to add to this compound shape. So what we're going to do is just take your pen tool, and we're just going to make a very simplified box here that is the same. Might add in a couple points here. It doesn't have to be as curved. So we're just making a simplified box that matches the gray curve. So what we're going to go here and make sure that's filled to none. And then what we need to do is select our A, select that new box that we just made right there. And then we're going to go up to the transform, so window, and we're just going to go to go up here to the Pathfinder, which was actually already open. And then what we're going to do is use the second one, and it's going to cut that out. So now the A has a cutout. So now that looks like that goes through there. So as you can see, we've manipulated the font and changed the type. Some other ideas we could do, maybe we can take this one and we want this one to go straight up, so it kind of comes out of there. You know, maybe we want to go back in and even make this like more dramatic or something of the font. But then we have that other little bit under here called by Regal. So we're just going to do another text box. I'm going to type in by Regal. As you can see, it's the same, starts with the same Lorem Ipsum, and it's the font. So I'm going to go up here and change this to Universe real quick. We're just going to just do a Roman. And then, of course, if you select all, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to make that only like say 40% so we can see it. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is make sure we're on the selection tool. We don't select that, and we're just going to go up to type, and we're going to do again create outline. So now, whoops, if I'm on the right tool, type, create outline. So now we have this outlined. So I think it's a little too tall, so we're just going to squish it a bit, holding down the command key. And then also we're going to go over to the fill, and I want that the same color as the line. So some of the things I want this to do is I want this back part of the L to line up with this part of the A, and we're just going to squeeze this a little more. So we kind of, the idea here is when you start to get into details, you know, one of the things is, you know, I want this idea where this lines up. So we have different parts lining up. So, you know, it starts to have a more cohesive look. So here on the A, I kind of want to go back here, and let's make sure we're going to pull that up a bit just so, whoops, make sure you're only on the point and not selected multiple points. So that way we kind of get this like nice little intersection. So we're just going to kind of tweak some more. So we have these nice points, you know, we start to see things line up and start to hold together as a logo themselves. So these are just sort of some of the simplified ways you can start with a type logo and then manipulate it to make it something different. You know, and you can completely use some of the ideas like you did for your font, doing live trace. If you're starting from a sketch, remember a really dark ink sketch will give you the best results. If you're trying to do something a little more organic, I would suggest that you actually try to do it in Illustrator. And of course, for this project, we're looking for a final logo in Illustrator. So again, if you have any questions, comments, please let me know.